While reading poetry on a site called Hello Poetry, I came across a poem titled Wisdom, which was posted by someone named Butch Decatoria in February of this year. It's a short, 3-line little poem that goes like this. Wisdom is ageless, a verdant tree atop the highest peak, no words rising above it all. This poet says that wisdom is ageless. Wisdom is a green, flourishing tree, a tree atop a high peak above everything, a tree that does not speak because wisdom is what it is. It has no need to speak. These are very ideas coming from this morning's First Testament text. On this Sunday morning, we find ourselves in one of the wisdom books of the Bible. Proverbs is an anthology of 7 collections, each consisting of short sayings, except for the first, which consists of a collection of wisdom poetic essays. This morning, we focus on that first collection where we're told about the origin of wisdom. How do we define wisdom? Am I going to ask? Yeah, well, Charlie, how do you define wisdom?
Knowing what will grow in the garden.
Knowing what will grow in the garden. Winder, how do you define wisdom?
I have no idea.
Wisdom and, oh well. Winder claims that he doesn't know because he's never had any wisdom. Well, our friends at Merriam-Webster Dictionary define wisdom as the ability to discern inner qualities in relationship, having insight and perception. Also defining it as having good sense, judgment, good common sense. Also, wisdom can be a generally accepted belief among a group. And then, of course, also accumulated philosophical or scientific learning. Surely among one of those 4 things, Winder, you have some aspect of one of those things. When we think of someone who is wise, we probably think of like a grandfatherly figure. We think of someone who has deep understanding of things, someone who has deep intelligence, keen discernment, and a capacity for sound judgment. Someone who knows right from wrong. In Hebrew, the word for wisdom is chakma. In Greek, the word for wisdom is, Charlie, do you know it? Sophia. Charlie's going to wish he never sat in the front. We think of Lady Sophia, Lady Wisdom, or Hagia Sophia, Holy Wisdom, who is often depicted in sculptures at churches, especially churches built during the medieval period. Lady Wisdom is a woman with crowns and a crown on her head and sometimes wings. In the Orthodox tradition, wisdom is seated on a throne. Her skin and her clothing are red to symbolize the dawn emerging against the deep blue of night. With that imagery in mind, let us turn once again to our scripture. Under the heading of the gifts of wisdom, verses 1 to 4 of chapter 8 of Proverbs tells us, does not wisdom call and does not understanding raise her voice? On the heights beside the way at the crossroads she takes her stand. Beside the gates in front of the town at the entrance of the portal she cries out. To you, O people, I call, and my cry is to all that live. Wisdom calls out. Wisdom is not silent, so back in that poem where it said wisdom does not speak, the scripture actually says wisdom calls out. Wisdom is not silent. Wisdom is welcoming, is everywhere. Come and find me. An open invitation for all, including you, Winder. Verses 6 to 21, which we did not read this morning, Beth did not read this morning because it wasn't part of the lectionary reading, focuses on wisdom's qualities. Some of those being intelligence, trustworthiness, and worth more than any earthly possessions and riches. verses 22 to 31 tell us about wisdom's part in creation. The Lord created me at the beginning of his work, the first of his acts of long ago. Ages ago, I was set up at the first before the beginning of the earth. When there were no depths, I was brought forth. When there were no springs abounding with water, before the mountains had been shaped, before the hills, I was brought forth. When he had not yet made earth and fields or the world's first bits of soil. When he established the heavens, I was there. When he drew a circle on the face of the deep. When he made firm the skies above. When he established the fountains of the deep. When he assigned to the sea its limit so that the waters might not transgress his command. When he marked out the foundations of the earth. Then I was beside him like a master worker, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing before him always, rejoicing in his inhabited world and delighting in the human race. We get the credentials of wisdom. From where does wisdom come? Wisdom says, I've been with God since the beginning. I was created at the beginning of God's work, even before the heavens were formed. Their commentary titled Preaching the Old Testament, a lectionary commentary, Doctors Ron Allen and Clark Williamson state that wisdom is not herself God, but instead wisdom was created by God, an extremely important aspect of God. Wisdom says, I'm so old that I was around when nothing was on the planet. I was there when heaven was formed. I was there when the skies were formed, when the seas took their shape, long before trains roamed through Wabash during the middle of church, before mountains and valleys were formed. I was there when human beings were created. Ageless and constant. Then I was beside him like a master worker, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing before him always, rejoicing in his inhabited world and delighting in the human race. Wisdom is also often seen as something serious. I said we often think about some grandfatherly figure sitting there with a long beard sort of hunched over. We think people who have a lot of wisdom sometimes look like they've never had any fun in their whole life. But wisdom can be joyous. It is laughter. It is fun. Wisdom as dancing through the world of creation, working with God, working for God. In the Feasting on the Word commentary series, Reverend Jeff Paschal of Guilford Park Presbyterian Church in Greensboro, North Carolina, reimagines this morning's scripture like this. I was out shopping yesterday, and whom did I run into? Wisdom. Yes, she was there. She called me over, and we began talking wisdom, Then I went down to the courthouse, and there she was again, making a plea for justice in some dingy courtroom where someone had been unjustly accused. After that, I dropped by the school, and she had gotten there before me, calling for students and teachers alike to seek truth. Then I went for a walk in the woods, moving along the trail in quiet meditation. And wisdom snuck up on me and said, now that we are alone, I have something I want to share with you, a present I want you to enjoy. You know, I've been around a really long time, really before the beginning of time. I've been whirling and dancing with God all along, and God's delight, laughing and playing. I want you to know the lightness of spirit and gladness that come when you welcome me. Will you set aside those thoughts, words, and deeds that make life heavy and sad for you and others? Will you come and laugh and play with me? Will you come and dance with me? Will you? Quite a modern interpretation. Wisdom in the grocery store. wisdom in the courthouse, wisdom in the schools, and out on the trails as you are hiking. There's wisdom all around us, whirling around us. And as I asked last week during Pentecost, if we actually stop to pay attention to the Spirit, this week I asked, do we actually stop and pay attention to wisdom? Do we interact with it? Do we dance with it? I have to say before this week, that's imagery I've never associated with the word wisdom. Greek philosopher Aristotle is quoted as saying, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Any philosophy students in here? Not one. Kind of shocked. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. I think that knowing yourself, knowing ourselves is important, but I don't think it's the beginning of wisdom. From a spiritual viewpoint, I think that Aristotle missed the mark. That's a bit too self-centered if you're a person who practices a faith tradition. Another famous Greek philosopher, Socrates, is quoted as saying, true wisdom comes to each of us when we realize how little we understand about life, ourselves, and the world around us. Socrates was concerned more about morals and less about spirituality, and I think he was on a good path. But how do we understand life? How do we understand ourselves? How do we understand the world around us? If we say, okay, I realize how little I actually understand, where do we go to obtain understanding? We don't just sit around and say, oh, that's how it is. I don't understand anything. Where do we go to obtain understanding? For those who practice a faith tradition, there has to be a source of understanding and of wisdom. So the Greek philosophers are awesome and amazing. But when it comes to spirituality, they miss the mark. Because I believe that the beginning, the middle, and the end of all wisdom is knowing God. Knowing God is where we find our understanding in ourselves and in others. In order to understand Sarah, I need to understand my relationship with God. In order to understand the world and how it operates, I need to understand my own relationship with God. Knowing God gives us the wisdom we need to understand things, even when we look at the world and we say, this is not how it should be. We have been given the wisdom to say the world should be something else. It should be something better. Verse 17b of Proverbs 8 states, and those who seek me diligently find me. God's wisdom and truth go hand in hand and shine like a light onto an often dark world. God has implanted wisdom into the world, and when we seek that, we start to understand God's intentions for us in the world. But we can only understand our purposes in life, God's intentions for us, by realizing that we have to let go of our own self-truths and wisdom. We have to let go of the idea that we are the most wise being in all of the world. We have to understand that our wisdom, our truth, our understanding comes from someone greater than us, that it comes from our Creator. For the end of Proverbs 8, verse 35 states, for whoever finds me finds life and obtains favor from the Lord. May we seek God's wisdom through stronger relationships with our Creator and through each other. And let God's wisdom be our guide so that we can discover the truth of life. May we use the wisdom God imparts on us to do good in the world instead of evil. And that new imagery we bring about today, let us seek out Sophia and let us dance with wisdom. This ends this morning's word. Thanks be to God. There's one.